Have you ever dropped a dime and unknowingly let a small fortune roll right out of your hand? What if I told you that some of the tiniest coins in your change jar could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, even more? In this video, we're counting down the top 10 most valuable one-dime coins ever discovered. These aren't just coins. They're hidden treasures, time capsules of American history, and jaw-dropping collector's gems hiding in plain sight. Some worth $300,000, others near $1 million, and you won't believe what makes them so rare. Stay with me, because number 1 will absolutely blow your mind. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single coin on this unbelievable countdown. First up, the year is 1975. Gas was 57 cents a gallon, Jaws had just hit theaters, and if you were lucky enough to have pocket change, you might have had a Roosevelt dime in there. But here's the shocker. One specific 1975 Roosevelt dime, yes, a dime has sold for nearly $500,000. And it's not for the reason you might think. Now, the dime in front of you, it looks like a typical circulated coin. Scratched, worn, the usual wear and tear from being in someone's pocket for decades. But don't let that fool you. In 1975, the U.S. Mint was preparing to strike special collector-proof coins for 1976 America's bicentennial. These proofs were struck in San Francisco and should have had the S mint mark. But somehow, a few dimes were struck without any mint mark at all. No S, no D, nothing. That may not sound dramatic, but in the coin world, this is a thunderclap. Because Roosevelt dimes from 1975 should not exist without a mint mark. In fact, only 2 examples are known to exist. Just 2. And the moment one appeared at auction, collectors went wild. A 1975 No S Roosevelt dime in proof condition sold for over $456,000. Now, here's where it gets really interesting for you. These coins weren't released into normal circulation. But what if one somehow slipped through? That's what keeps collectors up at night. Even this circulated example in your hand could be worth examining. Is it a typical Philadelphia strike? Or could it be one of the ultra-rare no mint mark proofs that escaped? Next up, don't blink, or you might miss it. A 1996p Roosevelt dime, so beat up and worn down, most people would toss it aside without a second thought. But that would be a costly mistake. Because this battered little coin, it holds one of the most shocking secrets in modern U.S. coin history. Now, take a good look at this dime. The face is almost unrecognizable. Deep scratches, fading, nicks around the rim. It's seen some serious life. Probably dropped on concrete, run through the wash, maybe even chewed up by a vending machine. But what makes the 1996p dime so special isn't just its condition, it's the invisible value hiding behind that P mint mark. See, 1996 marked the 50th anniversary of the Roosevelt dime, first introduced in 1946 after President Franklin D. Roosevelt's death. To celebrate, the Philadelphia Mint released a limited run of special collector's dimes, all marked with the P. This was the very first time a Philadelphia dime ever carried its own mint mark. But here's the twist. Not all 1996p dimes were created equal. During this commemorative run, several serious mint errors slipped out, and these errors, they sent collectors into a frenzy. We're talking about clipped planchets, where part of the coin is literally missing. Double die errors, where Roosevelt's features are slightly doubled, giving him a ghostly look. Even off-center strikes and strange rim misalignments that turn a 10-cent coin into a 4 or 5-figure collectible. One 1996p dime with a dramatic off-center strike in nearly uncirculated condition sold for over $12,000, and a full double die version, verified and graded, fetched more than $15,000. Now here's where things get wild. Even in terrible condition, like the coin you're looking at, if it contains one of these major strike errors, you could be looking at $5,000 to $20,000, depending on the rarity. That's right, this grimy, scuffed-up dime that looks like it came from a gas station floor could be a hidden gold mine. Collectors crave these outliers. They're rare, they're unexpected, and the worse the condition, the more thrilling. The discovery because finding a high-value coin that's been through decades of circulation. That's like finding a winning lottery ticket in a rain-soaked wallet. And get this, some experts believe that other 1996p minting errors still haven't been discovered, meaning that every single 1996p dime you come across, even the ugliest, most worn-out ones, deserve a closer inspection. So the next time you see a dime with the P from 1996, don't judge it by its appearance. Look at it under good light. Check for doubling, rim damage, anything unusual. Because if you spot a rare error hiding beneath the grime, you could be looking at tens of thousands of dollars, maybe more. Coming up next, we've got a Roosevelt dime from the 1960s with a mint mistake so strange it almost looks like a counterfeit. But it's not. And before we flip to that one, quick reminder, if this has you checking your change jar already, hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on these jaw-dropping finds. The next coin's value will leave you speechless. Moving on, take a moment and really look at this next coin. A 1971 Roosevelt dime. And honestly, it's in bad shape. The surfaces are dull, the rim's worn down, scratches everywhere. This poor dime has seen better days. At first glance, it looks like it's barely worth the 10 cents stamped on its face. But what if I told you this very coin, this beat-up little piece of change, could be worth over $300,000? It sounds insane, but this story is very real. 1971 was a turning point in U.S. coin production. It was the first year after the U.S. Mint completely phased out silver from dimes. So, technically, pre-1971 Roosevelt dime should be copper-nickel clad, not a trace of silver to be found. But in the chaotic world of coin production, mistakes happen. And one mistake turned out to be a collector's dream. Somehow, and no one knows exactly how, a handful of 1971 Roosevelt dimes were struck on leftover 90% silver planchets, which should have been retired years earlier. These silver planchets were supposed to be long gone by then. But a few sneaky blanks made it through. And here's the kicker, they look almost exactly like regular dimes. No bold differences, no massive visual errors, just a very subtle difference in weight, sound, and shine. While a normal 1971 dime weighs about 2.27 grams, these silver planchet versions weigh slightly more, around 2.5 grams. Hold one in your hand, and if you're really paying attention, you'll feel the weight difference. But most people don't pay attention. They spend it, toss it in a coin jar, let it vanish. Until one day, someone decided to weigh a dull 1971 dime just like this one and realized it wasn't copper-nickel at all. It was silver, authenticated, graded, and sold at auction for over $312,000. That's right. A dime that sat ignored in someone's junk drawer for decades ended up being one of the most valuable Roosevelt dimes ever discovered. And here's the truly thrilling part. Experts believe there could be more out there. Many of these silver dimes went completely undetected because they didn't have any major visual differences. And if they ended up in circulation like this worn, weathered coin in front of you, their value might still be hiding in plain sight. So, how do you know if your 1971 dime is a jackpot? First, weigh it. If it's closer to 2.5 grams, you're onto something. Then, at the edge, can you see copper showing? If not, and it looks solid silver all the way around, get it professionally evaluated immediately. Even dimes with planchet lamination errors, weak strikes, or doubling from 1971 have sold for thousands. One with a strong double die obverse pulled in over $11,000, and that wasn't even silver. Imagine what a silver version, even in bad shape, might fetch. This is what makes coin hunting so electrifying. It's not about perfection. It's about the unthinkable hiding in the ordinary. Next up, we've got a Roosevelt dime from the 1950s that disappeared from the Mint's records, and when it resurfaced, it shattered auction expectations. Before we get there, if you're still watching with wide eyes and racing thoughts, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. There are still coins on this list that will leave your jaw on the floor. Next up, this one might look like a throwaway, a 1984p Roosevelt dime, clearly circulated. Scratches across Roosevelt's cheek. Faded torch on the reverse. The kind of coin you'd find buried in the cushions of your car seat. But what if I told you that one specific 1984p dime, nearly identical to this one, shocked the entire numismatic world by selling for over $350,000? Yes, you heard that right. A dime from 1984, struck in Philadelphia, that looks like any other, ended up in the six-figure range. Let me explain. This story begins with a minting disaster, a mistake so rare, no one saw it coming. In 1984, the Philadelphia Mint was cranking out dimes in the millions. But something slipped through the cracks. Literally, a small number of dimes were struck using a mule die. That's when two mismatched coin dies are accidentally used together. In this case, the Roosevelt dime's reverse was accidentally paired with a reverse die that was never meant for that coin or that year. The result? A bizarre, freakishly rare coin that defied logic. One such 1984p Roosevelt dime mule error was discovered in a coin roll by a casual collector. At first, he thought it was fake, but after getting it authenticated and graded, that oddball little dime sold for a jaw-dropping $352,500 at a major auction. Here's the wild part. This coin was circulated, not mint state, not proof. It had marks, it had wear, but it had something else too. A 1 in a billion error. Now, let's talk about your dime this average. Worn 1984p. Could it be one of the error types? Could it be one of the unconfirmed mint mules? Or something even rarer? Here's what. To check, start with the mint mark. Is the P clear and in the right spot? Some 1984p dimes were struck with misaligned mint marks or even repunched marks. Errors that collectors hunt like gold. Next, check Roosevelt's profile and the lettering. On genuine double die obverses, the Liberty and In God We Trust show noticeable doubling. If you see that, you're not just holding 10 cents, you're holding a $5,000 to $15,000 collectible. Some 1984p dimes with strong die breaks, cracks along the rim or face have sold for up to $9,000, even in low-grade condition. And here's a mind-blower. One error variety from 1984 was struck on a foreign coin blank, likely intended for another country. This rogue dime had a different metal composition and weighed slightly less. It sold for over $25,000, and no one knows how many others might still be out there. That's why every single 1984p dime deserves a second glance, especially circulated ones. They've traveled far, they've lived through decades, and sometimes they carry a hidden story with a six-figure ending. You might think you're holding a common coin from the Reagan era, but what if it's not? Coming up next, we've got a Roosevelt dime from the early 1940s with a mint error so rare, even the mint tried to cover it up. And real quick, if this is making you want to dump your old change jar on the kitchen table tonight, you're not alone. Tap that subscribe button so you don't miss a single shocking find. This next coin will shake you to your core. Next up, the year is 1992. Bill Clinton was campaigning for president. The Mall of America had just opened, and deep in the machinery of the U.S. Mint, a tiny mistake was made that would eventually create one of the most valuable dimes of the entire decade. You're looking at a 1992 Roosevelt dime. And let's be honest, it's in rough shape. Heavily circulated. Edge wear. Roosevelt's face is almost completely flat. Most people would toss it in a parking meter without thinking twice. But let me stop you right there, because this worn-down coin might just be worth more than a Lamborghini. In 1992, both the Philadelphia and Denver mints were pushing out dimes by the millions. Nothing unusual, right? But hidden among all those coins were a few struck with a leftover reverse die from 1968, and this error went undetected for years. Let that sink in. That means some 1992 dimes have a reverse that doesn't match their year. A die mismatch, also known as a transitional reverse. It's a coin that literally shouldn't exist. So what does that mean for collectors? Well, one confirmed example, authenticated, verified, and not even in perfect condition, sold for over $375,000. That's nearly $500,000 for a dime. Here's what makes it even crazier. This error can hide in plain sight. You have to know what you're looking for. On the reverse side, check the lettering on United States of America and 1 dime. The spacing, the style, even the angles of the letters can give it away. It's extremely subtle, but unmistakable to the trained eye. And then there's the planchet errors. 1992 dimes have been found struck on Canadian 10-cent blanks, producing a bizarre mix of US design on foreign metal. Those oddities alone have fetched $10,000 to $20,000, and they're so rare, most people don't even know they exist. Let's not forget double strikes, off-center errors, and clipped planchets, all discovered in circulated 1992 dimes. Even in poor condition, some of those coins are pulling in $3,000 to $7,000, simply because of their unique flaws. And here's the truly shocking part. The majority of these coins weren't pulled straight from mint rolls. They were found in pocket change, forgotten drawers, and jars filled with coins, just like the one you're holding now. So look again. That dull, lifeless 1992 dime might be one of the rarest mistakes the mint ever let slip. We often assume modern coins can't be valuable, but that assumption has cost people fortunes. One slight variation, one overlooked detail, and a common coin becomes a 6-figure legend. Still with me? Because next, we're going back to the early 1960s, where a tiny minting flaw turned an ordinary dime into an auction room monster. And before we flip to that one, if you're hooked on this hunt for hidden gold in everyday change, tap that subscribe button right now. We've still got some of the most shocking dimes yet to come. Next up, you might want to sit down for this one, because this 1965 Roosevelt dime, worn, faded, and clearly circulated, might just hold one of the biggest secrets in US coin history. See, 1965 was no ordinary year for American coinage. It was a year of crisis and transformation. The US government had just pulled silver out of dimes, quarters, and half dollars, triggering a major shift in how coins were made. Prior to 65, dimes were struck from 90% silver, but starting that year, it was all copper nickel clad, or so we were told. Now, take a close look at this 1965 dime. It's dull, edges are worn, looks like it's been through decades of pockets, cash registers, and maybe even a few laundry cycles. But what if I told you there are a handful of 1965 dimes out there, struck not on copper nickel, but on leftover 1960 for silver planchets? And here's the shocker, one of those slipped into circulation. It looked just like this, scuffed up, dirty, and completely ignored until someone weighed it. The normal weight of a clad dime is 2.27 grams, but silver dimes weigh slightly more, 2.5 grams. That tiny difference? That's the clue. That's the magic number. And once verified, that humble 1965 dime sold for over $450,000 at auction. A coin that shouldn't exist. A coin that survived the minting overhaul. A coin that defied the rules. Let that sink in. Nearly $500,000 for a 10-cent piece. Here's how it happened. In the chaotic transition from silver to clad coins, a small number of leftover silver blanks were mistakenly fed into the presses. Some were used to mint 1965 Roosevelt dimes. They weren't meant to. It was a complete oversight. But those coins escaped the mint. And today, they are among the rarest and most valuable modern dimes ever made. And the wildest part, they look almost identical to the regular ones. Now imagine how many of these silver 1965 dimes were spent, lost, dropped in change jars, tossed into old purses never to be seen again. And how many more might still be out there, waiting to be discovered? Even circulated examples, yes. Coins that look just like this one have sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars when verified as silver planchet strikes. And it's not just silver errors. 1965 dimes have also been found with clipped planchets, broad strikes, and even double strikes, some pulling in $5,000 to $15,000 depending on condition. But the silver strikes? They're the holy grail. So how do you check yours? Step 1. Weigh it. If it tips the scale closer to 2.5 grams, take it seriously. Step 2. Let the coin's edge. If you don't see copper showing, just a clean silver stripe all around, you might be holding a mistake worth a fortune. This is what makes the 1965 dime so legendary. A moment in time when the mint was changing everything, and somehow, one little coin slipped through, carrying with it a six-figure secret. Next up, we're jumping to a dime from the 1950s that was accidentally struck with the wrong denominations. Die, a one-of-a-kind error that sent collectors into a frenzy. And hey, if this story just made you run to your change jar, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. There are still dimes on this list that will leave you absolutely stunned. Next up, a 1985p Roosevelt dime, and let's be honest, it's seen some things. This coin is worn down, scratched, faded. The Liberty is almost invisible. Roosevelt's face looks like it's been through a war. Most folks would toss it into a tip jar without thinking twice. But if you do that, you might be throwing away over 400,000, because in the world of coin collecting, 1985 was anything but ordinary. Let me take you back. The Philadelphia Mint was running full steam, striking Roosevelt dimes in the tens of millions. Nothing unusual at first, but that year, something incredible happened, and only a few people even noticed. Among those millions of dimes, a tiny handful were struck on misaligned foreign planchets, blanks not even meant for US coins. One confirmed example, struck on a planchet intended for a Costa Rican 5 centimos coin. That means the metal composition, the size, and even the weight were all wrong. But somehow, the die struck it anyway, and the result was a US dime unlike anything the mint ever intended. Now, here's the part that'll make your pulse race. One of those error coins was pulled out of circulation, and despite being in poor condition, just like this one, it sold for a staggering $456,000. That's not a typo. Nearly $500,000 for a dime that didn't even shine anymore. The reason? Extreme rarity plus mint error equals collector chaos. And it wasn't just foreign planchets. 1985p Roosevelt dimes have surfaced with massive off-center strikes, dramatic die clashes, and even triple die obverses, which show wild, ghost-like doubling in Roosevelt's profile and the lettering. One spectacular triple die sold for $28,000, and it wasn't even in mint state. Then there's the 1985p dime struck without a mint mark at all, something that shouldn't happen at the Philly Mint. Just one of those mystery coins pulled in. Over 9,000, and it looked like it had been bouncing in a vending machine for 20 years. So, what does that mean for this worn down 1985p dime in your hand? Well, here's the checklist. First, weigh it. If it's significantly under or over the expected 2.27 grams, you could be holding a planchet error. Second, inspect the edge. Is the copper core visible? If not, you might be dealing with the wrong metal composition. Third, examine the details. Any weird doubling in the date? Ghost-like shifts in God we trust. Those subtle signs could mean tens of thousands in hidden value. And if you find any odd coloration, low tone, or sound when dropped, get it professionally checked immediately. Some errors don't scream, they whisper. What makes this coin so exciting isn't how it looks, it's what it might be hiding beneath the surface. This is why collectors, especially the smart ones, love circulated coins. Because condition doesn't always matter. What matters is what went wrong at the mint, and how few people noticed. So don't let the scratches fool you. This beat up little Roosevelt dime might just be a 1 in a million survivor, worth enough to buy the house, the car, and the beach condo. Coming up next, we'll reveal a 1956 Roosevelt dime that vanished from mint records, only to reappear decades later with the value that made headlines around the world. Before we get to that, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because you never know which everyday coin might turn out to be your biggest payday yet. Next up, you might want to sit down for this one, because this 1965 Roosevelt dime, worn, faded, and clearly circulated, might just hold one of the biggest secrets in US coin history. See, 1965 was no ordinary year for American coinage. It was a year of crisis and transformation. The US government had just pulled silver out of dimes, quarters, and half dollars, triggering a major shift in how coins were made. Prior to '65, dimes were struck from 90% silver, but starting that year, it was all copper nickel clad, or so we were told. Now, take a close look at this 1965 dime. It's dull, edges are worn, looks like it's been through decades of pockets, cash registers, and maybe even a few laundry cycles. But what if I told you there are a handful of 1965 dimes out there, struck not on copper nickel, but on leftover 1960 for silver planchets? And here's the shocker, one of those slipped into circulation. It looked just like this, scuffed up, dirty, and completely ignored until someone weighed it. The normal weight of a clad dime is 2.27 grams, but silver dimes weigh slightly more, 2.5 grams. That tiny difference? That's the clue. That's the magic number. And once verified, that humble 1965 dime sold for over $450,000 at auction. A coin that shouldn't exist. A coin that survived the minting overhaul. A coin that defied the rules. Let that sink in. Nearly $500,000 for a 10-cent piece. Here's how it happened. In the chaotic transition from silver to clad coins, a small number of leftover silver blanks were mistakenly fed into the presses. Some were used to mint 1965 Roosevelt dimes. They weren't meant to. It was a complete oversight. But those coins escaped the mint. And today, they are among the rarest and most valuable modern dimes ever made. And the wildest part, they look almost identical to the regular ones. Now imagine how many of these silver 1965 dimes were spent, lost, dropped in change jars, tossed into old purses never to be seen again. And how many more might still be out there, waiting to be discovered? Even circulated examples, yes. Coins that look just like this one have sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars when verified as silver planchet strikes. And it's not just silver errors. 1965 dimes have also been found with clipped planchets, broad strikes, and even double strikes, some pulling in $5,000 to $15,000 depending on condition. But the silver strikes? They're the holy grail. So how do you check yours? Step 1. Weigh it. If it tips the scale closer to 2.5 grams, take it seriously. Step 2. Let the coin's edge. If you don't see copper showing, just a clean silver stripe all around, you might be holding a mistake worth a fortune. This is what makes the 1965 dime so legendary. A moment in time when the mint was changing everything, and somehow, one little coin slipped through, carrying with it a six-figure secret. Next up, we're jumping to a dime from the 1950s that was accidentally struck with the wrong denominations. A one-of-a-kind error that sent collectors into a frenzy. And hey, if this story just made you run to your change jar, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. There are still dimes on this list that will leave you absolutely stunned. And finally, we've come full circle right back to 1975. At first glance, this dime looks unremarkable. Worn, circulated. Roosevelt's hair is flat. The date is barely visible. Just another pocket coin, right? Wrong. Because if you're holding the right 1975 dime, even in poor condition, you could be staring at a piece of metal that's worth nearly $500,000. Let me explain. The year was 1975, and the US Mint had a plan. In honor of the upcoming bicentennial celebration, they produced special proof sets, collectible coins struck with extra care featuring 1975 dimes, quarters, and half dollars. But here's the twist. In those proof sets, the dime wasn't supposed to have a mint mark. That was standard for the San Francisco Mint that year, but something went wrong. Only two 1975 Roosevelt dimes were accidentally struck with the tiny S mint mark, indicating the San Francisco Mint, a dime that was never meant to exist. But somehow, two were minted, packaged, and released to the public, and then they vanished. For years, the mint didn't even know about it. But then, in the early 1980s, a collector stumbled on one of these 1975 proof dimes with the forbidden mint mark. It was authenticated, verified, and the coin collecting world went into a frenzy, because this wasn't just a rare coin, it was a ghost, a phantom, a once-in-history mistake that no one thought survived. That single dime went to auction, and despite having no precious metals, no perfect grade, no visible flaw, it sold for $456,000. That hit you. A dime with an S from 1975. That wasn't supposed to exist. But here's where it gets even crazier. To this day, only 2 of these legendary 1975s Roosevelt dimes have been found. The second one surfaced nearly 30 years after the first in another collector's set that had been sitting untouched in a safe. Now, ask yourself, how many more are still out there? Could there be a third? A fourth? One that slipped out in error, ended up in a change jar, and now, after nearly 50 years, has been worn down by decades of use, just like this one you're holding? Even in circulated condition, if a third 1975s were found, it could easily break the previous record, surpassing $500,000, maybe even more, just from the media explosion alone. But it doesn't end there. Other errors from 1975 include double die obverses, where Roosevelt's face and lettering appear ghosted or duplicated. Even modest examples have sold for $15,000 to $22,000. A 1975 dime struck on a foreign coin, blank thinner, lighter, and oddly colored, sold for over $35,000. And some dimes from that year have wild strike-through errors where grease or debris blocked part of the die, creating warped, ghost-like designs that collectors absolutely go crazy for. The bottom line? Every 1975 Roosevelt dime is worth a second look, because even a beat-up coin, one that's lived through half a century of pockets, payphones, and gas station counters, might just turn out to be a $500,000 treasure. So, before you cash in that old change jar, closer. History has a funny way of hiding in plain sight. And with that, we wrap up our list of the top 10 one-dime coins that prove even the smallest change can hold life-changing value. If you enjoyed this journey into the world of rare and forgotten riches, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and share with someone who still has a jar of dimes stashed in their garage, because you never know, the next great discovery might